Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter code FACE at checkout. That's harrys.com, code FACE. Enjoy!
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, what next for this insurrectionist movement, or for the QAnon movement for that matter? We're happy to have with us this morning a reporter at Mother Jones who's been covering internet disinformation. His writing on technology, race, politics, and other topics has appeared in The Guardian, Vice, and on NPR and CNN's websites. You can find him on Twitter under his name, Ali Breland. We're happy to have Ali Breland on Make It Plain with us today. Hey, Brother Ali, how are you, man?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Glad you could be here with us on Make It Plain. Your latest for Mother Jones has to do with QAnon, a lot of their conspiracy theories and predictions that never quite seem to pan out the way they put them out there. And especially most lately. I mean, they really believe, first of all, that Trump would be restored to the presidency, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the, honestly, that sounds pretty wild, but that's probably one of the lesser wild things that they believe at this point.
Yeah. Now, I'm not, as many probably aren't fully aware of all these different overlaps and intersections, but what is going on now, and what impact does Parler and some of the changes there, what impact will that have on the QAnon movement?
Yeah, so there's a few things going on right now. QAnon believers, people who believe that the government is controlled by a satanic cabal of liberal elite pedophiles, who Donald Trump is locked in a war against, they are sort of at this crisis where they don't have a clear organizing point. They've been kicked off every major platform to some degree. Facebook says that they're no longer welcome. There's obviously exceptions to that because Facebook is not particularly good at enforcing its own rules. Twitter said that they're not welcome. Their sort of main hub, like you mentioned, Parler, which was taken down, was another massive congregation place for them online because this is a primarily online movement, even though it has real world implications. And so they're kind of trying to figure out where to go. So a lot of them have gone to this platform called Telegram, which is known for its encrypted messaging services, but also sort of has this feature that allows people to create public groups where they can post freely like they're using Twitter or something like that. And so on Telegram, people are trying to perpetuate the conspiracy theory even more. They're saying that Donald Trump is like pushing new things, that he is actually still secretly behind the scenes. They're creating all sorts of like bizarre sorts of scenarios where they're combining sovereign citizen conspiracy theories of the 90s and mid 2000s about how Washington, D.C. and the government is actually like a corporation. And they're combining it with ways of QAnon in ways I don't fully even understand. And then the other thing too that's kind of happening that's a little bit frightening is that it sounds crazy, but there are people far more radical than QAnon people. They're neo-Nazis and white supremacists. And those people are trying to latch on to QAnon people and try to bring them into their fold, which is very concerning to see.
It is very concerning. As you write in your latest piece, they have a lot of fits and starts. At the inauguration, something was supposed to happen, and it didn't. Were they intimidated by, do you think, the large National Guard military presence? What do you think happened there? Or are they also finding themselves or feeling that they're more surveilled now by the state with everything that happened January 6th? Just what happened there? It's like they sold a big wolf ticket for January 20th.
I think it was a couple things. I mean, like, on one hand, I think it was definitely the sort of large military presence. Like, you saw a similar thing happen with Unite the Right, which was different, even though there was overlap. It is important to note the sort of implicit racism of QAnon. QAnon almost tracks with like sort of anti-Semitic blood libel and the protocols of the Elders of Zion to anti-Semitic Jewish conspiracy theories. But the project isn't as inherently, it's racist, but not as inherently racist as white nationalism. So they're different things. But after Unite the Right in Charlottesville in 2017, there was a follow-up event, and the follow-up event was very poorly attended. There was too much attention on it. People saw the negative consequences, just like now how people who attended the Capitol the riots and the insurrection are being arrested. They're being fired from their jobs. The first time we kind of saw that happen was after Unite the Right. And so the consequences and the illustration of what can happen are so great that I think that it deterred a lot of people from going. And yeah, like you said, QAnon people thought that Donald Trump was going to pull some sort of magic wool over everyone's eyes and actually still be president on Inauguration Day. That didn't happen. And as a result, some QAnon supporters are pretty disaffected by that. And the whole piece that I wrote is about how even though some are disaffected and there will be some slight exodus of QAnoners out of the movement, this has been a recurring theme of the movement. They go through these sort of dates where everything's supposed to materialize and then it doesn't happen, and then they keep going and they rationalize it.
So the setbacks don't really seem to matter.
No, they just recreate reality into like contort it to whatever they need to.
So a lack of accountability with and for their own movement. Obviously.
No concept of it.
Yeah. So in another piece you wrote, and you alluded to Telegram earlier, you interviewed a Marc-Andre Argentino, a PhD candidate at Concordia University who tracks extremism online. I just want to lift this up and get you to comment on it. You quote him as saying, Telegram appears to be where some of the influencers are going to make their home. In some Proud Boys groups, Parler being shut down has sent tens of thousands or more people to Telegram. All of them are seeking refuge and looking for answers since their Q bullshit lied to them. At least that's one post that I'm reading from, I believe. Correction. Now is our opportunity to grab them by the hand and lead them toward ideological truth. Join their normie chats and show them love and unity. So talk to us about that if you would. So are there Proud Boys, and you mentioned all different segments of this far-right movement. Are there Proud Boys and other segments of that movement that are pissed at QAnon specifically right now and feel kind of misled?
No, because people like the Proud Boys have always sort of seen QAnon with a skeptical eye and like understood that it's absurd, which is kind of goofy given how absurd the Proud Boys are themselves. I mean, their name is like the Proud Boys, right? But what they see this chance as is like an opportunity to potentially get converts to harder right positions. So like some people like will yell at me in my Twitter mentions. They'll be like, QAnon is radical, and like it is, right? But I guess there's gradients of radicalness, and so Proud Boys are probably more radical than QAnon people in some ways, and so Proud Boys are trying to recruit them. But Mark was just tweeting the other day too about how other groups like white nationalists and neo-Nazis, which again the Proud Boys have a lot of crossover with, but are not, I guess, like specifically dedicated to neo-Nazism, even though it's like an auxiliary feature of like some wings of the groups. But like hard right neo-Nazi groups are trying to do the same thing that the Proud Boys just talked about in that post you read, where they're trying to go in and they're doing raids several times a day in QAnon groups to bring QAnoners over to neo-Nazism.
Is it working?
We don't know yet. It's early. I mean, there's a lot of reasons as to believe why like it might have some initial success. I've talked to QAnon supporters and they're willing to talk to me, but like at the same time, like the fundamental precepts of QAnon are very anti-Semitic. the people that they go after, that they target overwhelmingly, or Jewish people are overrepresented in it. They're not only targeting Jewish people, but that represents like a large amount of the people who they make their enemies. If you question them a lot enough, they'll sort of hint at being anti-Semitic or just outright say anti-Semitic things. And so if you have people doing that, that's the first step towards neo-Nazism. And so neo-Nazis see that and they're very attracted to that. But I don't think we know if it's working yet. It's unclear, but I'm not exactly optimistic about the situation.
So what I just read from that post, what intrigued me is where it says, grab them by the hand, lead them toward ideological truths, join their normie chats, and show them love and unity. First of all, I'm making, what is a normie chat? What does that mean? I don't know.
So normie is like a term that has, I think it originally started off in dark wings of the internet, like 4chan, where people are very irony poisoned. They only speak through like just aggressive levels of irony, and there's no real sincerity. And what they were talking about is more normal people. So they were referring to people in like mainstream places. And so normie's been co-opted as a broader term that's not just used by 4chan people now. And it's basically a reference to anyone who is not sort of radicalized, or not even radicalized, but inculcated or moved into your specific niche worldview. They don't understand the cool things or the edgy things that you're into.
I got you. But then what also stood out to me is this. Join their normie chats and show them love and unity. So, Ali, am I going too far to see some parallel between those very words and Donald Trump going on video January 6th saying, "We love you"? Remember, I thought that was very interesting. These people tearing up the Capitol, and he says, "We love you. It's time to go home." But after ginning him not to go there, but he starts using this terminology of love. Is there something in that love piece in terms of coddling some of these people?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot like in that regard. Trump has shown a repeated willingness to not want to rebuke anyone who supports him, even if they're some of the most like reprehensible, despisable people. There's reporting about his unwillingness. I mean, we can see his unwillingness to reject neo-Nazis and white supremacists. And there's been reporting that behind the scenes, like these people show him love. And so he's like unwilling to turn them away. And QAnon people are just another example of him. I think even like recently there was like a report I want to say where he was saying that like they sound like good people to me. They want good things. And he's also said versions of that publicly too. So we don't need to rely on backroom reporting to show us this.
Yeah, but it just seems to me, it was kind of interesting to me, even the way he said it. And the way it's written here. Like you said, these supposed to be rough and tough, don't take no stuff characters. But we have to love them. We have to collar. We have to almost baby them.
It's like, it goes back to, I do think that like with these sorts of people trying to like, I guess like deprogram them or whatever, I don't really like that term, but like, it's important to like maybe not try to aggressively mock them, but they are consenting adults who have picked out and staked out these positions, and they didn't come there from desperation. Some people are truly desperate and they get to QAnon that way, and maybe those specific people do need a coddled hand. But there's so many people I've spoken to who are very clearly of means, who are of privilege, are not desperate people who are not turning to QAnon out of having no other options. They're turning to QAnon because it like justifies a lot of their most egregious beliefs. It gives them a framework for seeing the world in a more easy way. It makes their arguments easier. And I don't have like a lot of sympathy for those people. And I don't think that we need to like look to them with like love or anything like that.
Has this movement, the QAnon / Proud Boys / former Parler movement, I guess, and if you put them all together, it has grown since Trump has been in office, correct?
Unequivocally. And it's scary too, because it's grown since Trump's been in office. You've seen them do more and more things, but the one thing that's been particularly scary since Biden's win is that these groups were traditionally very splintered, even though there was some crossover. And Proud Boys don't believe in QAnon now, but these groups have all kind of come together and seen each other as necessary bedfellows. Sort of their willingness to work together is more concerning than it's ever been.
So just like you're saying, you know, QAnon is never set back by its own failures. Will Proud Boys continue to trust QAnon even at times? I mean, will they still remain bedfellows?
I think that the Proud Boys are a little bit more conscious and like strategic operators than QAnon people. The Proud Boys are sitting down to try to like make their movement work in a specific way. They have like an organization as a group. They're leaders. They're like local chapters. There are different things like that. QAnon is, for lack of a better term, more of an organic organization. And so QAnoners are not thinking about Proud Boys in the same way that the Proud Boys are thinking about QAnon as like a strategic opportunity to like get new people in. And I think that the Proud Boys will continue to see the QAnon people as a useful place to try to recruit from and bring new people into. I don't think QAnon is thinking about the Proud Boys in the same way. They just kind of see them as like good guys that beat up Antifa who they absolutely hate. So, yeah.
So this QAnon itself, is it pretty much just online conspiratorialist, or do they get into the streets too and get violent?
Yeah, they definitely do get into the street. It's not the same way. The Proud Boys are like absolute explicitly like they like to brawl. They like to fight people. They like to go out and like antagonize Antifa. QAnon people don't organize around those kinds of things. You might see QAnon people who are out in sort of paramilitary militia groups walking around, but those kinds of people are there for another reason. They're oath keepers. They're like a part of some weird right-wing militia. But their big thing over the past summer was doing like Save the Children type protests, and they've kind of, I guess, receded from doing that. But again, it's just like a much harder group to sort of track the movements of, because they're so splintered and sort of centered around this like loose online ideology, as opposed to having like a specific organization in the way that the Proud Boys do, or in the way that Base or the Oath Keepers or groups like that.
Now, there's still 4chan still exists, correct?
Yeah, 4chan does exist. It's like 4chan exists, and then the sort of successor to 4chan exists, 8chan/8kun. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not. It's called 8chan/what?
8kun is the new name for it. They rebranded. Basically, it's an even worse version of 4chan. They started 4chan regulated speech a little bit because there was a massive harassment campaign on the website, I want to say in 2014 or 2016, and some of the moderators started to like take some of that down. So in response, they made it even wilder website where they did less moderation on, and in that website's around, that's like the sort of the primary home of QAnon. I do think though that one of the QAnon boards was nuked, so to speak, by a rogue administrator, so I'm not really sure how they're handling that. But the crazy thing too about 8kun is that the people who made that website have sort of pushed QAnon too. I actually did reporting that, I'm not sure if you've seen, but like my colleague and I went and found that the host of 8kun and the guy who made that website appears to have hosted child porn domains himself. And the whole message of QAnon is like, we're taking down these child predators. And so there's this just absurdly grotesque built-in hypocrisy into QAnon and everything that they believe, and the people who founded it, or who we believe have probably founded or accelerated it.
Well, it's like J. Edgar Hoover's fascination with everyone else's sexuality, while he was doing his own thing in a closeted and down low way. I mean, so it is, people tend to traffic in the spaces that they know the most about. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's that. But now, and I know you've also written about, social media sites in general and what they have and have not been doing with these organizations. Are we finally, after January 6th, at a place where many of the major social media has banished these characters altogether? Is that accurate or no?
It's hard to answer. We're definitely a better place than we used to be, but these companies have made these promises over and over and over, right? Facebook has done like 3 announcements saying that they're going to ban all the Stop the Steal groups that are on their page, on their website. They said the first time they did this was like at the beginning of November, when right after Biden won, they were like, oh, we're banning this. And then they just made an announcement last week. So I don't know why they keep making new announcements, but it's proof that they're not doing a good enough job. But at the same time, they are cracking down in ways that they never have been before. A lot of people cynically, and I suspect this to be correct, I don't know if it is or not. We don't have reporting that shows that it's correct, but I suspect it's true, is that they've made a calculation that it's worth their time to crack down on this content to appease the Biden administration and appease the Democrats who now have the House and who now have the Senate to stave off potential regulation. But the other thing that's important to note is even if they are operating a little bit better, single corporations or like a small cadre of like 3 or 4 corporations should not have this much power in determining how speech moves around the internet and how things operate. And we shouldn't have to rely on these tiny amounts of companies to do what we believe is correct as a society. They're not democratically accountable. They're not electable. There's no way to like actually do anything. Like you can vote with your feet, but that just means not using Facebook. And boycotts, unless they are structured and organized in very specific manners, where you have a very important group working towards a singular goal, are very hard to actually achieve. Like, and I don't think that the American public is interested in boycotting Facebook in that way, even if they disagree with Facebook's aims.
Yes, I mean, it's too ubiquitous, unfortunately. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But so then, Ali, are you saying that these companies, private companies, left to make these decisions with no accountability, are you suggesting they themselves should be broken up and or more regulated?
I'm agnostic to the solutions, like as a person, I guess, who is not super studied up in economics, but I will say that there needs to be something done. And whether that's breaking up, whether that's more strict regulations, but leaving the companies as is, whether that means in some cases, an interesting solution I've seen floated is sort of nationalizing the companies and running them as a structure where BBC in the UK is nationalized, but the government has no control over what they do. They just get funding from the government, and like there is some like accountability measures, but Boris Johnson has no ability to like tell BBC what's going on. So maybe a structure like that where they are democratically accountable, but not able to be controlled by the federal government could be an interesting one too. So anything like that, any of those I think would be better than what we're at now.
Yeah, because clearly we see, I mean, I know there's the First Amendment and the interest in total freedom.
Yeah.
But that crosses a line, especially when, so in other words, you can't have a First Amendment that says the government can't regulate speech, but a private entity as powerful as Facebook can. Yeah. That kind of defeats. I don't think that was meant either. We don't want the government to regulate it, but we rather have monopolistic behemoth do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like the Second Amendment. We want people to have the right to bear arms, but we also want people to have the right to carry automatic weapons. I mean, it doesn't add up.
And I think that even the government has like recognized that like free speech does not mean literally saying anything. Like free speech, I guess, means that you can technically be racist, but free speech does not like give you the ability to advocate for hate crimes against marginalized groups of people, or just advocate for crimes against anyone at all. You can't like tell people to go kill someone else. That's not okay. I think that's there's specific legal provisions that account for those kinds of things.
And so you mentioned other countries. Isn't it true, like even in countries like Germany, you can't even say, right, a lot of the crap that these guys say online here, right? You can't get away with saying that stuff publicly. Am I correct?
Oh yeah. It's really interesting, actually. I've done stories where I've come across like sort of neo-Nazi noxious content that is visible in the US. And then I've worked with researchers who will use VPNs to place themselves in Germany, and they found that these companies are aware of this content and they are censoring it in Germany, where they know that these laws are stricter, and just like leaving it up in the US. And I don't know if that's still happening. The last time I did a story like this was, I want to say 2 years ago with Google Plus, but this is something that they definitely are aware of, that they move around in. I don't know what the current state of that is, but yeah, in the past, that's definitely been the case.
Yeah. Well, we will continue to watch you. And when you answered one question about how this movement has grown, will it now continue to grow with Parler being shut down, with the failure at the inauguration? Nothing happened, nothing changed. Biden is the president. Do you think this movement or these movements will continue to grow now that Biden is in office?
I think that they will. My guess is that they will stagnate, and the reasons are because structurally, like the places they congregate and organize, they're being pushed to the margins. So like there's just way less people on Telegram. There are barriers to entry and how to figure out how to use it. So there's a lot of reason as to why people might not be able to access these spaces to find QAnon, to find other harder right ideologies. However, even though that is the case, and I'm optimistic for that reason, prior to Trump, Fox News would always do the best when in the years where it was like representing the opposition party. When a Democrat was in power, Fox News' ratings would go up because people were interested in fighting back against the people in power that they were most frustrated in. And I could see that being a galvanizing force against Biden. I'm not sure where QAnon people would congregate, given that they don't have Facebook in the way that they used to. But that kind of thing is like concerning to see, and something that I'm definitely watching for, even though I'm a little optimistic that it might not grow in the short term.
What about Trump? How can he mobilize these troops if he himself is knocked off of social media? What do you predict? What is he going? Is he going to go on Telegram? What do you predict? Or is he already on there?
He's not on Telegram. I think he's like launched a lawsuit to try to get back on Facebook, so that's his primary entry point. I don't know what he's going to do, because I think Parler was like the last attractive option to him, and he is like very obviously like clearly into his own self-image and making sure that he is seen by the most amount of people. He very clearly likes and places a lot of emphasis on having large audiences and being on TV and things like that. And I think that like to see him go to sort of one of these like quote unquote Bush League social media sites that are pushed to the fringes and the margins would be a very big blow to his ego. But if he is media star for long enough, if he doesn't have a way to get his voice out there, I can see him eventually getting desperate enough to do that and to go to a place like Telegram, to go to another website maybe. We'll see. Parler's also trying to get back up. They've worked out a deal with, I think, a Russian host, and it might be online soon. So that might be where he goes next if they're able to get back up. We'll see how that goes.
Russia, of course.
Yeah.
Always Russia. That's where it happened. And to be honest with you, I'm going to share my own hypothesis with you. So, yeah, I think obviously a lot of people on the 6th got pulled in, and there were a handful of them that knew what they intended to do, and everybody else kind of got caught up with the crowd, I think. Not that I'm excusing them, but, a lot of folks, followers up there. But remember, and we're seeing it now in Moscow, we're seeing demonstrations against Putin. Remember, right before Hillary Clinton left the State Department, there was a major demonstration in Moscow against Putin after one of those sham elections, which he, Ali, held as a grudge against her and was one of the primary motivations to help his unwitting or witting agent, Donald Trump, defeat her. That was an embarrassment. What January 6th did, vis-a-vis Trump and his help, was give Russian state television and Putin the same visual here. So now you had the same visual of a demonstration against the government in the United States, against an incoming president, as he felt was done him, and as he felt Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, he felt they orchestrated that in Moscow. I want to say 2011, 2012, whenever it was. He felt that they orchestrated that. So this was, and so what's in Trump's incentive of doing it, like you say, he wants to do everything with Russia. He knows he needs that money. He knows he's indebted to those oligarchs. So Trump can go back now and say, hey, I gave you the visual on January 6th. I mean, I did my job, at least in that regard. I may not have won the election, but I gave you the visual. That's just my own hypothesis as to part of his thinking and motivation for doing that, so he could stay in Putin's back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. There's an interesting symmetry to it. I go back and forth on it because, in one hand, like, it does take a level of intelligence to sort of like work the media in the way that he does and to like ascend to these roles. But on the other hand, I don't know, he's having White House chefs make him McDonald's style burgers. I love McDonald's, but it's like I don't know how to think about him or how to categorize him mentally.
No, I know it's tough because you wonder, and I mean, I'm not suggesting any genius either. It's not, yeah. But I think that's pretty simplistic. You want an uprising. That ain't hard to manipulate, and that's what he did. And he might have a person or two close to him, closer than we think. I don't think Jared and Ivanka are totally unsoiled. Hey, Dad, we need this money. We need this $500 million. So whatever we need to do to stay in the good graces of the people we need to stay in good graces of, maybe we should just do it, and then plead, another Putin tactic, the fog of unknowability. Well, I don't know. I didn't have a response. I don't know what happened. Well, he's definitely mastered that. What I think instead is not so much him mastering the media in that way, is that the media has been too late and too slow, Ali, in realizing what the fog of unknowability is and how they've been played in it. They've been fascinated with this dude since his inception, rather than cover him objectively. Look at him. Look what he's doing. I can't believe it. It's just, no, this is all part of an enabling of the kind of disaster we saw on January 6th. And now people are late to the party. Well, now we need to ban him. People have been saying that for years. He needs to be banned. But, I think it's more the mainstream media that's been naive. And they've also been enjoying, I think, to some extent, more interest in their sites and their networks because of Trump, because he is that, ongoing rubberneck invoking car accident that everybody wants to see. So hopefully we moved on from that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I do think that he sort of ripped open a hole in the media and showed that there are these fundamental gaps. And I think that unfortunately, I think we're better off where we were in 2016, but there's a lot of things the media I think still doesn't understand broadly. Like the concept of having a quote unquote objective media is a very American concept, and so many other developed countries are just baffled that we have that, not because they have unobjective or biased media systems, but because people are very open and honest about the perspectives that they're approaching the media with, and the public takes that in and then is able to place that over the stories that they're reading. Whereas and the idea is that you can still provide objectivity while having a perspective or opinion that's out there. Whereas American media is not actually interested in objectivity. It's about objectivity theater. And someone like Trump just broke that open because what is the middle between, I don't know, whatever Nancy Pelosi is doing versus Donald Trump advocating for an insurrection on the side, or openly talking about, going to war with Iran in these sort of ludicrous ways.
Right. I like that term. If you don't mind, I want to borrow that, objectivity theater.
I've been trying to make this argument as much as I can, so please spread it as much as you can.
I love it. But what worries me now, as I'm watching some of the coverage currently since the inauguration, Joe Biden's boring. So you have to create drama. Boring in the context relativeness to the mainstream media, who's been covering a nut for the past 4 years. Joe Biden even said, wouldn't you like to have a president who's not creating drama in the news cycle every day? Which is kind of what you're supposed to do. A president, we're not supposed to be focused on one individual every single day in the news cycle, every minute of the day. And I fear that what Trump has done is set a precedent where they will still seek that out and then manufacture crap that really isn't worth it. I just wonder how long they can fast from covering Donald Trump. We'll have to see.
It is, I'm not really sure either because, I obviously am part of the media, but the way that Mother Jones sits down and operates is, fundamentally different than how CNN operates in that, or just any magazine. Any magazine or, a written newspaper is going to behave differently than cable news. You can argue that, we're interested in the spectacle too, but I think it's unarguable that we're not as interested in spectacles as TV news channels are. And so I'm not really sure how that's going to play out.
Or the New York Times. They got some print that is tripping. No, of course. And that's what sets Mother Jones apart and all, independent media in that way. Because it's not that. It's not that type of thing. By the way, folks, as they say on the website, are you looking, they're asking a question. Mother Jones is one of my favorites, motherjones.com. Are you looking for news you can trust? And as we've been saying, Ali's been covering disinformation, which is an era that we're in right now that is unprecedented. And it is people of color and young people and women, all historically targeted communities for oppression that are most targeted with disinformation and most affected by it. And Mother Jones doesn't do that. Ali is trying hard to fight that. So we ask you to support Mother Jones and definitely not mainstream because you don't make a lot of money trying to combat disinformation. That's the other trick to now, that's a whole other thing. If you want to be rich, you join the mainstream media and you help push disinformation and objectivity theater. But we don't do that. They definitely don't do that at motherjones.com. His latest QAnon never made sense, and it will easily make sense of President Biden because they make sense of whatever they want to pull out of thin air. Share this story and share motherjones.com and Ali Breland. Check him out on Twitter. Ali Breland is his full name. On Twitter, you'll find him there. Great to meet you. Great to talk to you, buddy. Let's stay in close touch. Appreciate your work.
Yeah, please. Thank you so much. It was great to be on, and thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter code FACE at checkout. That's harrys.com, code FACE. Enjoy!